G'day, g'day, and welcome to Dog Shadow Gaming, the channel where we live to game and game to live. As always, I'm Belf, and today we're talking about Vermintide 2's new upcoming DLC, Winds of Magic. Now, we have just had a really cool animated trailer just dropped for this about 4 days ago. I wanted to put something together that all of you guys could see. And I also found a really cool interview with Matt Sanderson on Gamer Hub TV, which is another channel that has managed to get lucky guys have managed to get a good interview with this guy. And I really wanted to have some chat and do a bit of speculation on what we might be seeing in this DLC. All that and more right after this.
Welcome home. This is your son.
We're damned. Sigma preserve us.
My name is Mats Andersson, and I'm a game designer of Fat Shark, heading up the action team. So we do all the weapons and enemies and abilities and like in-game action bits.
Talk about what you guys are showing here new with Vermintide, the Winds of Magic.
So the Winds of Magic is kind of a collective of stuff we've been working on. It's an expansion for the game, so we want to make it slightly bigger than a normal DLC, and it's focused on this concept of Winds of Magic. That is a kind of staple of the Warhammer world, where the power of magic flows from the north down, and it's divided into 8 different colors or different aspects of magic.
Okay guys, on screen now you can see the 8 different laws there in the diagram. In the center you've got the law, then the law name, and then the equivalent in the empire of that magic school. So the 8 different winds or laws of magic are Hyish, the white wind, the law of light; Azur, the blue wind, the law of heavens; Shamon, the yellow wind, the law of metal; Gairan, the green wind, the law of life; Gur, the brown wind, the law of beasts; Akwashi, the red wind, the law of fire; Ulgu, the grey wind, the law of shadows; Shaiish, the purple wind, the law of death. Now, I'm sure I have butchered some of those names, guys, so do let me know down in the comments below. But just in case you didn't know what they were talking about then, these are sort of the winds of magic for the Warhammer lore, the Warhammer universe. All right, let's get back into listening to what Matt's got to say.
Now, what we want to do is basically create an end game loop for the players. So we'll be presenting consecutive challenges using Slightly shorter level segments, but infuse those with that magic, present like a magical, it might be fire or it might be life, which is like the green regenerative thing going. Have specific objectives for that, specific set enemy spawns and challenges, and ask you to complete those on time and with as little damage taken as possible.
So essentially modifiers for run-throughs.
Yeah. So I mean, each win will bring a specific mutator into play that changes the overall kind of gameplay loop for you, and that in combination with the different objectives and the different specific enemy spawns allows us to kind of narrate really specific challenges. So I mean, whenever we do something, we try to kind of take both new players and old players and master players into account. So we want to create this thing where like it is a pure and nice experience just viewing and playing the game through the different Winds of Magic from the start of the weaves that we call them, moving on to kind of a progression-based completionist thing where you get to complete each and every weave after each other, and then at the end we're going to have some high-peaking, challenging things that will kind of really push the level of mastery you can achieve in the game. And hopefully it will be awesome.
Awesome indeed. It's sounding really, really cool. Now, in the background there, you can see some footage that we have. This is straight off Steam. Links will be in the description for what looks like Helmgart on top of the walls there. And this looks like it's the Law of Chamon, the yellow wind, the Law of Metal. And, you know, obviously you've got that yellow tinge there. You've got the big chunks of molten metal hanging out of the wall there, which is really, really cool. And I love the concept of it. I think they've gone in completely the right direction, the devs here, with you know, following this route over the 8 different winds of law or laws. You know, you're looking at some really different and interesting combinations with the law of beasts, the law of death. You know, you got the law of life, which I imagine is going to be very green and vibrant. You know, law of light is obviously going to, well, I mean, it could be anything. That's going to be very cool to see. You know, so there's some really good combinations here. It's really interesting. He talks about expansion size content here, or expansion size DLC. And then in the same thing, he's talking about a lot of in-depth longevity type measures that are going to come with it. For both your very, very, you know, diehard fans who play it every single day, and even your casual player, we should get a lot out of it. So I'm very, very keen. Let me know in the comments below. What is your sort of what are you looking forward to? Which winds of magic are you most keen to see?
You guys are also introducing, you guys have Skaven, of course, in the game, obviously, and you guys introduced in Vermintide 2, cultist and chaos spawns and stuff like that, mainly Nurgle, and now you guys are introducing beastmen to the lore.
Yeah. So together with the weaves and the winds of magic kind of part of it, we're also doing a complete set of beastmen. So for us that means both a kind of a roamer population, as we used to call it, which is basically a horde enemy, a set of base enemies and some elites that can populate entire levels. So we create a set that we can reuse for any level we want to have them on, and just kind of replace the Skaven population or the Chaos population. We're also looking at mixing and matching. So with the Roamer set, what we're having is the Gore, which is the basic Beastman, but he will be the kind of expression of the Beastman, because they are wild and they are fierce and they are horrible in and of themselves. The Bestigor is the big armored version of that. He will charge into combat and kind of disrupt the gameplay loop. So he will put everyone on their asses, enemies and players alike, and just create that loop where you need to be on the lookout for him. The Angors that are the kind of smaller horde enemies, we tweak them into more of a skirmisher role. So we give the baseline horde enemies spears and a bit more range. So you will have to position and push towards them in order to actually combat them effectively. And then we have the roamer population of the Angors. They will be featuring some archers and bows, which is kind of a first for the gameplay series, but they add an additional layer of keeping a lookout for what you're facing and actually splitting up the team, because someone needs to go and deal with that. For bosses, we have a huge Minotaur, Berserker, angry dual axe wielding Minotaur guy that just charges into combat and does his thing. And then we had some specials where we try to focus on the buffing and mutation of gameplay, kind of similar to the stuff we're doing in Winds of Magic, but he will have a standard, a totem that he plants, and that will kick this into effect. And then it's up to the players to actually push forwards and remove the standard to remove the buff. So combined, they do that thing where we suddenly kind of shift the gameplay into a more kind of forcing players to push towards the enemy thing, and they add quite a bit of niceness to the game.
So how do you guys, for example, like you're introducing, like you said, Beastmen and all their different mechanics and subgenres, but how do you guys decide what race you want to implement into the Vermintide 2 and its DLC, like what enemies you want to use?
So it's basically a big brawl at the office, since most of us are kind of Warhammer nerds. So we have like the game director and the executive producer and me. I've played orcs since '95 or something. So we usually end the discussion with a big argument, and I've been saying we should be doing orcs for 4 years. I haven't had my way yet, and now we're doing Beastmen. It's down to our game director. After that point, everyone's kind of on board, since if you're a Warhammer nerd, you kind of love all parts of Warhammer to a degree. So we take that and break it down and move over to a much more boring, dry, kind of theoretical perspective.
Now, this one is really interesting. I would love to see orcs in Vermintide 2. It would be really, really cool. When you think about it, they're probably the only bad guys that are horde-based that could or still haven't already been done. I mean, we've had the Skaven, we've had Chaos, you know, we've had the Beastmen, and when you really think about it, we're sort of running out of Chaos-aligned horde-based mechanics, because, I mean, obviously they do need to be fairly horde-based in order for it to work with the game. So I think that orcs would be amazing. I think the next one obviously is either going to be orcs or vampires. Now, if you think about the lore of the end times, I would have thought that the first three that they chose, Skaven, Chaos, and then Beastmen, all make sense in the lore, as they did work together to some degrees, or a lot of degrees, in the end times. Orcs would also be really interesting, although they didn't technically work with them or against, they sort of just did their own thing. They certainly were a part of destroying the Empire and the world that we know. The vampires in the end did sort of join up with the good guys, but I'm sure that you could work it into the story to be able to put them in there. Obviously, they're a horde-based faction that would work very well in this mechanic. I can understand why they haven't put them in till now, because it kind of just does make it into another zombie game, so there's not necessarily a lot of difference to it. But the orcs would add such a cool flavor to this. You know, and you could do goblins for, you know, that horde-ish type mechanic, and then you could have black orcs in the same way that you have, you know, chosen warriors and things. I personally think it would be a fantastic idea. And I'd love to see those other mechanics in there. What I'd love to see is, I love games where you're sort of walking into a level and both your enemies are not only trying to fight you, but they're fighting each other. So, I mean, you've already got these war-torn areas. It'd be cool to go through levels where orcs are sort of beating up on Chaos and Ratmen and Beastmen, and, you know, there's this big war going on, and you're sort of making your way through fighting both of them at times, or letting them fight each other. That could be really, really, really cool. So very excited to hear that they're already talking about some of the other factions that could be introduced into the game. It sounds really cool. Let me know, as always, in the comments below, you know, what would you like to see next, and what do you think would work or not work? Yeah, let's get back to it and continue watching.
Where we'll look at what kind of palette do we have for our enemies, what can we actually bring to the table to shift and change the gameplay loop. But since this is a 4-player co-op game, we want to respect the kind of rhythm of the game. So we don't want to go too far and create like a dueling enemy or something that will have one player face off against one enemy for 5 minutes while the rest of the team is just standing by going golf applause. We want to have something that just kind of makes it a bit different and introduces a new tactic that you kind of need to employ, because the game features a vast amount of enemies, so we group stuff into threats. So if there's Ungors, that is the threat. If it's 10 or 15 or 20, it's an ongoing threat until they're gone. If there's archers, that's another threat that should have a different tactic to it, but they shouldn't break the mold, because it's the combination of enemies, right, that kind of makes everything tick.
So what's next for your studio? Are you guys going to continue to do Warhammer IP? Are you guys going to do your own game? Like, what do you guys want to work on now?
So the main thing that we all know we want to do is continue to support Vermintide 2 for at least a bunch of years more. That's the plan. We want a long tail on this. So part of that work has gone into the Winds of Magic. It's basically us building a platform for live services, that we can have a format that enables us to be much more predictable, much more tighter with our deadlines, and actually push content through. Since building huge narrative levels, that's a big endeavor, and building these more challenged focused things, that might be something that we can pull off with a bit more predictability and actually like keep to our plans. Otherwise, I mean, FatShark is a privately held and company, and we're self-funded. So all
Your own company, yeah.
yeah. So I mean, all decisions are made in-house, which is super great for a lot of things, but it also means things change quite rapidly. So there are plans for other things. They're not far gone at all, since everyone's kind of occupied with Vermintide currently, and it's kind of hard to get people away from that because everyone's like, we want to add this and we want to add that. And I mean, that goes for both Beastman and Chaos and the Skaven. Like, we have a long list of enemies that we want to do to set up. Same goes for weapons and characters and everything. It's just a matter of finding the time and finding the kind of reality to make that happen.
It's just such a huge, lush, deep universe. I mean, like you said, like the orcs have a variety of enemies, multiple enemies, 10, 20, like 25 different enemies.
Right? Yeah, totally.
They're too smart, though.
No, that's fine. You can play as orcs instead. It would be super nice. You can
I
just,
would like to see some orcs and some Dakas and stuff come in and just like wreck stuff up. I would rather see vampire accounts.
but I mean, I think that comes to the core of why we're doing Vermintide from the get-go. I mean, at least 50% of the studio are Warhammer nerds, and the large motivation for actually making the game is like, we want to make Warhammer but do it properly. I mean, it's way more about that than like, oh, how can we monetize or make the most money out of stuff? If we were doing that, we would probably be doing something else. So when it comes to making these kind of creative decisions of bringing new factions in or doing certain things, we want to keep those in line with what we actually can make good enough. We don't want to just like, well, put a fucking skin on him and make it happen, because we want to do it properly. And that goes for new characters and new content and new enemies and new weapons or whatever.
This is so great to hear. I think FatShark are one of those rare companies who genuinely love the Warhammer IP, and they've made a fantastic game. And if you haven't played it, then do check it out. Go and play it, or check it out on YouTube. I've got some on my own channel. Do check it out. But it's such a beautiful world, and they've done such a good job of it. And you just listening to this guy, you can tell exactly why. They are passionate. They know the lore, and they want it to be right. They're building a game they want to play, and it's more about that than it is about just making money. And this is, I think, I mean, I could go into a whole different rant about EA and blah, 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 but you've all heard it before in 100 different videos. So I'm not going to go on it here. But here is a genuine bunch of guys, or, you know, people, guys and girls, who are trying to make a game that genuinely is cool to play. And I think that's why this is such a great, great game. A couple of interesting things. He talks about new characters. That's the second time he says new characters, specifically new characters. So are we going to get another new character? I think that would be great to add another character to the 5 we already have. I would love to see maybe a Sigmarite priest, a paladin, or who knows, you could get some Tomb Kings or some Lizardmen. That'd be really cool, something a bit different. So I don't know what that means, but it's fun to speculate. He also talks about playing the game from the perspective of the orcs, which would be really interesting. Can you imagine playing as like the bad guys? You could play as like a Storm Vermin or a Chaos Champion or a Gracia. That would be really, really cool. As always, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. I will let the rest of the video play out. Thank you so much for watching. As always, make sure to click the little thumbs up button, hit up the subscribe if you're new around here, and click the little bell if you want to get notified for the next video we have. It's a Warhammer channel, and it's always about Warhammer. If you want to support the channel, you can check out the links below for the Patreon and the PayPal. Otherwise, I will let you go with the rest.
So when does Winds of Magic come out?
When it's done is the super official thing, but summer as it looks now, that's definitely what we're aiming for, and it's looking quite good.
Yeah.